Before we jump into today's topic, a quick disclaimer. The stories and data we share come from the states that we practice in and the experiences that we personally had, which can differ greatly across our country and certainly the globe. This is not a professional advice show. So let's get comfy and talk about death.
Welcome to MortMic, a down-to-earth discussion on death and dying. I'm Jem.
And I'm Red. So for today's topic, we were thinking a nice introductory, get to know you, get to know us kind of thing would be our first experience with a dead body.
Yeah, because not a lot of people really know what it's like to see a dead body until they actually see one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's surreal for a lot of people. Everyone has a different experience. Some people can't really handle it, and some people are, a little more morbidly curious than others.
Yeah. So I first experienced death. I actually had never had a relative die. I never had been to a funeral even before I started interning at a funeral home in my hometown. So I decided that I wanted to be a funeral director, and I went to this funeral home the first day. And of course, the funeral director is like, "Hey, kid, you want to see a dead body?" Do you do that to interns that come to your funeral home?
Yeah. So a lot of our interns at our funeral home specifically now, they are all either going into the program or are in a program for mortuary science. But a lot of people that really haven't had schooling, we don't really get them around like the care center and around dead bodies like right away. So it's definitely something that like you kind of have to, I don't know if the word earn is correct.
Yeah.
But
So anyways, I remember this like little funeral home in the middle of nowhere, like a small, basically a house. So we walk in, and the care center, which for those who don't know what a care center is, it's basically where all the embalming and makeup stuff happens for these dead bodies. Walk into the care center, and on the table is this little old lady, of course. Absolutely nothing is wrong with her. She's beautiful, but it was completely jarring because the first thing I thought of was those wax models of like all the celebrities,
Yeah, wax museum.
Because they do look like that. They don't look real. And I think that was the first experience I had, was that this is not a real person. And I think that stayed with me, honestly, throughout my entire time dealing with death and stuff like that. So she had me like dress her and stuff. I think the eyes freaked me out too, because, their eyes are glassy and foggy and also don't look real. But I think wax model is basically the perfect way to describe it for me.
Was the body embalmed? Was she embalmed?
Yeah, they'd already embalmed her.
Oh, so that's a little different from my experience. I imagine that would be a way more jarring than just seeing somebody who, like, this is another weird term, freshly dead. Because like the embalming process does change somebody so much. So
yeah,
that would be definitely weird. So my story, it was all the way into mortuary science college. I had seen like one dead body before. It was my uncle at his funeral, and I was so young that I like just touched him and I was like, he's cold. But I don't remember that one very much. So my real first experience was in Mortside College, and I remember like we walked into class for the first day of embalming lab, and like there's like a gaggle of us, all students together, like 40 of us, and we're all gathered around this preparation table. And there's a body bag on the table, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is happening. The moment is like arriving. Like this is gonna basically like make or break my future in this industry. Like this is gonna be the deciding moment. Like, am I able to deal with this every day? And like the bag unzips, and it was the most surreal, weird experience that I've ever had, because it's just like, wow, like that is a person, and they're not moving. They are dead. They're actually dead. And especially a little more jarring to like keep unzipping the bag, and he has no leg. He was an amputee, so like it was. It was
that
just
still
odd.
Scares me sometimes.
Yeah.
To be honest, when you open the bag and you're like, oh,
yeah, like oh god, what's going on in here? So yeah, that was a really weird moment for me, and like of course our embalming professor was just like, okay, like get on in there, like start taking the body bag out from under him, and like having to lift and transfer somebody that's dead, like, and just it's the weirdest feeling under your gloves, like this cold, like clammy person that's no longer alive.
And I know, and it's funny because the people that are guiding you usually have seen like hundreds of dead bodies. Like me now, I'm like, oh, it's just a dead body, like whatever. But I think you forget how the first experience is completely just like unsettling in like a weird outer body sort of way.
Yeah, it's kind of like as a professional now, like getting to introduce youngins to their first body, and they're just like deer in the headlights, like just like we were when we were in their same position. It's almost kind of funny. I hate to say that, but it's a little funny.
That's interesting. I didn't know that your first experience would have been also like as you were becoming a funeral director.
Yeah, once we go into like our actual histories and everything, you'll see that it's a very, very as things are happening is when they were happening to me. So it was it's very scary. So but we're both still here through it all, through all of the crazy stuff we've seen. We're still here.
Yeah. So I guess it's always weird. You're always going to feel uncomfortable. They don't look real, and they're very cold. That's basically all you have to know.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I don't think you ever get used to it. You know what I mean? Like, it's, for me, I'm always like, that's not real, that's not real, that's not real. I don't know about you, Red.
Yeah, even with your, like, hands just wrist deep in guts, it's just like, okay, this isn't happening. Like,
yeah.
You could only, you watch movies your whole life of like, oh, you see death in movies, you see death on the news, but it's a totally different playing field when you're actually, like, 2 feet away from it. And I know that like I've gotten a lot of questions from people before of like, oh, like do people throw up, and do they like freak out and like run out of the room? And I mean, I feel like in certain situations there's people that just like they cannot handle it. But I think we all are able to like start piecing things together once we're around it enough. But I think I agree, definitely, like it's something that you like double take sometimes of just like, where am I right now? I'm standing next to a dead body. I'm in a room of dead bodies right now.
Yeah, that's what I think. I get that comment a lot too from people. They're like, oh, you must be so used to it, or like, I don't know how you do this every day. And it's like, honestly, I am not used to it.
I don't know how I do it either.
I don't know how I do it either. But it does get easier, and once you know how to process those feelings and kind of deal with it person to person, it's really not that bad in the scheme of everything.
Yeah, I think we all cope in our own weird different ways. Like I talk to the bodies. I don't know if you talk to the bodies.
Oh God, I do.
Okay.
I do talk to them.
So we're not weird. We're the standard then. Good.
Yeah. That's another thing is, so when this old lady, the first dead body that I did see, I think something that really helped me was that my funeral director, she was like, all right, grandma, time to get you undressed. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. She was like very Southern hospitality. All right, okay, can you hand me grandma's shirt? We're going to go ahead and put that on her now. Like, let's do her hair. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, it is more comforting when you kind of treat it as kind of like a hospice or a hospital situation. Yeah,
definitely. I absolutely agree with that. Because, like, I know, like, depending on the type of religion that you're a part of, like, a lot of people view a body as just, it's an empty vessel. Like, there's nothing left. Like, but I also still like to, think of it as, like, a respect thing and, keeping us sane. I'm just like, oh, Mrs. Johnson. Like, just chit-chatting with
yeah,
them,
exactly. Yeah. All right.
And that's all for this week. This has been the pilot episode for our brand new podcast, MortMic.
Yeah, and thank you so much, everyone, for listening and being patient with us. We wanted to make this pilot short and sweet while still being fun and interesting as we figure out, what's going to work best for us for this podcast. This podcast has absolutely been such a labor of love for us. We're really excited to finally be able to bring it to you guys. And we've both never done podcasting before. So there's been a lot of ups and downs, learning how to record, edit, produce, and host. We considered our options on whether or not to publish our first few recordings due to some, quality issues. But both our pilot and our introduction episodes are so special to us. We just both love them so much. We we really wanted to be able to share them with you guys, despite our technological learning curve. So thank you so much for sticking with us, and we promise that we'll have things all nice and sorted out for the upcoming episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd also love to interact with you guys on our socials. So if you could like, follow, and subscribe to us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, you can find us at MortMic Podcast. That's MortMicPodcast. It would mean a lot to hear from you and all of your feedback that you'll have for us, especially for these first 2 episodes while we're learning. So please tell us what you think in a comment, or you can drop us a rating on whatever podcast hosting site you use. If you have any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear about, or some burning questions you might have, please shoot us an email at mortmicpodcast@gmail.com.
You can expect a new MortMic podcast every other Thursday, and definitely if you have a comment or question, or even if you just want to say hi, shoot us an email at mortmicpodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, all of those cool things. We might even share a few cool death memes. And that's at MortMic Podcast, MortMic Podcast. I also want to give a huge thank you to our friend Marcin for the use of his song titled Deputies of Death, which he produced just for our show, and we're so excited to have the possibly coolest casual death podcast theme ever. It's so cool. You can check out his Bandcamp at Marcin, that's MARSON, music.bandcamp.com. Thanks, Marcin.
And be sure to tune in every other week for more casual discussions on death. This has been MortMic for the week.
Bye.
Bye.